What's up, Soul Family? Coming at you with another collective reading. This one's gonna be on. We have needle and thread, and that means a sincere wish will be granted. So, if you're interested in a one-on-one reading, you can do so by directly messaging me or by doing so at the link in the bio. The first reading is going to be 35 for up to 20 minutes. You can simply ask whatever questions you want, or I can pull and see what comes out. If it doesn't resonate for whatever reason, then I'll simply refund you. That being said, let's first see what this wish or manifestation is, and then we'll go from there. So I got a horseshoe, which is good luck, and then ram, which is a stubborn, aggressive person. So maybe you've been hoping for something to shift or something to change along the lines of somebody being toxic or maybe not having like the best interactions with somebody, and that's going to shift. So maybe your wish will be granted. Maybe for one reason or another, they will be able to kind of see your perspective or understand where you're coming from, or maybe they will simply shift how they are acting or approaching the situation. I've had friends before, like where for one reason or another, like I met them while they were going through something that wasn't the best, and shortly after they got through that period, they literally came to me and apologized. And we weren't friends at the time, like while they're going through that, we're kind of like, more or less detached. But after they went through that period, they were able to apologize and really explain like, okay, sorry, I was going through this. And then it made sense as to why they might not have shown up in the kindest way in those moments. But that being said, let's pull a couple more and see what's coming out. I can't believe I actually got that. So maybe there's somebody who is going through a spiritual awakening. And I know for a fact, like when it comes to spiritual awakenings, they can be very messy. Especially like when your third eye just like pops open and you're starting to like just experience all these crazy things, and then trying to also then reconcile what you're seeing and witnessing within the physical experience that has to offer. I've seen people, even homeless people, unfortunately, who have, I can tell they're connected. Like it's like they're channeling almost, but they're not fully grounded to be able to fully integrate or act on or really understand the things that they're saying or doing. And then there are even times like where people act out adversely because of the fact that they're going through something spiritually or metaphysically in ways that other people simply cannot understand. That will then lead them to maybe lashing out or having on, random experiences from your perspective, but from their end, they could be going through something completely different. Like the way that reality is set up, it's wildly complex and you never know what another person's going through. So it's important to sometimes give people grace because that could be what shifts their entire experience. And then we have the Hierophant. So yeah, it could be, especially like when it comes to spiritual awakenings in, I'd say, the Western society. Like when it comes to stuff like that, because of the fact that we have such deeply entrenched belief systems around what divinity is, we have so many ideas that divinity is something that is angry, wrathful, everything but loving and unconditionally everything but unconditionally loving and kind, right? We have all these misconceptions about divinity being something that is jealous and that you have to be perfect around, all these concepts. So it makes sense that when people start to interact with metaphysical energies or non-physical energies, that it might come with a little bit of having to either filter out some older belief systems or maybe a fear, and then because of that fear, them then interacting with not so positive energies and entities. So I say this to say that when people are going through spiritual awakenings, you are basically a radio receptor, like wide open to receiving pretty much anything. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, and sometimes when we have interactions with somebody who could be stubborn or harsh or something like that, could simply be having metaphysical or experiences like that we aren't able to grasp because it's held within a lot more fear or negativity or paradigms that we might not have had to entertain or understand. And how reality forms to us, we get evidence of whatever we start to believe and pay attention and focus on. So you never know what somebody is going through. I'll pull a couple more and see kind of like what's going on in that. And sometimes we can see the potential to interact with somebody, but then it's like there's like a wall, or there could just be like certain like kinks in the connection that need to be worked out before we are able to fully bond and connect with them in a healthy way. So we have the Five of Swords and then the King of Pentacles. So this is the energy of sometimes having to pick and choose our battles. And this almost makes me feel like, is this the King of Pentacles? It is. I thought it was, because this deck also has Midas, my apologies. But anyway, this could be the energy of simply picking and choosing your battles and not necessarily entertaining the negative aspects of another person, or even having to argue or put yourself in that situation. Sometimes what we can do best is simply move around them and let people believe and do what they want to believe. And the King of Pentacles did kind of throw me off initially, but maybe it's the energy of, because when I think about the King of Pentacles, it's somebody who has mastered the element of what abundance is. It's like somebody who understands their flow, understands like how to connect to that energy and how to manage their resources. They know how to work hard, but they also know how to use what they have to the best of their ability. So maybe it's a call to, instead of even arguing with people, even dealing with these conflicts, it's a call to simply take the other path and just focus on yourself, or worry about building up yourself or your own resources in the meantime. That, or maybe this is somebody who you're dealing with who they are very boastful or very kind of like full of themselves because of the fact that they feel that they are abundant or they have a certain level of money or resources, so they feel kind of like they can just act whatever type of way. So again, maybe just a call to simply just detach, move on, and not even deal with that kind of energy. And maybe that's the wish in and of itself, getting to be removed from the situation of having to deal with somebody who's arrogant and annoying. Maybe that in and of itself is the wish. You never know. I'll pull one more and we'll go to the bottom of the deck. We have the Queen of Wands, and then we have the Devil on the bottom of the deck. So this makes me think of like the Queen of Wands. I always think of somebody who's just very authentic, somebody who's really empowered to be themselves. And that can then draw so many times like adverse interactions, people who are operating out of ego, people who don't necessarily like it. Some people just get bothered by your light. Some people get bothered by the fact that you are confident, that you feel comfortable in your skin. And people feel like, how dare you, almost. Like this last couple weeks, I think was a perfect example of that. This gorgeous woman, all she said was she doesn't want to drink coffee for a date. That's it. And when I say the internet lost their damn minds, and they were doing everything to try and like degrade and put this person back into like a little box and almost control how she viewed herself. So if you are dealing with somebody who, you know, you just wish they would get out your space and you're trying to shift away from them, maybe it's just the energy of you just got to keep on shining bright so ain't no more darkness can be in your presence. Maybe it really is the energy of just worrying about your bag, you know, worrying about putting your effort towards being abundant and drawing in your resources and building a strong foundation before you even worry about having to, you know, entertain some bullshit. Especially if somebody is going through something spiritual, a lot of times it's very difficult to be able to communicate with individuals in certain times of their journey. So it's always important to be mindful, especially if they are somebody who is really rigid in their belief system. Some people have very, very rigid structures, very rigid belief systems, and very narrow views of how things should be and be experienced. So if you're even interacting in that facet with somebody, then it's just best to not even worry about them and just move on. Remove yourself from the situation. Some people just won't hear what you have to say, and that's perfectly fine, because what you have to say is simply not for them. But what I would never let anybody do is silence your voice, try to control you, try to put you in a box, and try to diminish or minimize who you are as a person, and try to kind of hold you within their grasp. I think some people have a hard time with things they can't understand or control. And if you are somebody who is in that realm, then they simply have an issue with that. And if you are that Queen of Wands energy, you're that fire, it's kind of hard to hold on to fire now, ain't it? So just continue being yourself and allow things that aren't meant for you to fall off. That being said, peace and blessings, and I hope you guys have a great day.